Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment, silent and sharp, when you feel it in your bones. You are no longer seen, no longer heard. You show up, give your best, but something is missing. Not outside, but within. That subtle ache that whispers, "Why am I still here?" Let me tell you something very clearly. The moment you feel unappreciated is the moment life is nudging you, walk away. This is not abandonment, this is awakening. If you stay till the end of this message, I promise, you see not just why walking away is an act of wisdom, but how it becomes your first step toward peace, clarity, and self-respect. Self-worth is not something to be earned through the approval of others. It is something you remember. And in a world that often teaches us to constantly prove ourselves, to fit in, to earn validation, this remembering becomes an act of courage. You were not born to be overlooked. You were not created to blend into environments that refuse to acknowledge your presence. When you find yourself in a space, be it a relationship, a workplace, a friendship, where your presence is taken for granted, it is not a sign to try harder. It is a sign to pause and listen. Listen to that subtle whisper inside of you saying, "This is not where you belong." We are taught to stay, to endure, to give people the benefit of the doubt. And yes, patience is a virtue. But so is discernment. And discernment tells you that when your soul feels heavy in someone's company, it's not love. It's weight. It is not arrogance to value yourself. It is balance. You are not meant to beg for recognition, to fight for a seat at a table that diminishes you, because when you do, the cost is far greater than rejection. The cost is you. Your time, your dignity, your inner alignment, and no external achievement or connection is worth the price of self-betrayal. There's a subtle danger in being too accommodating, too understanding, too forgiving. It trains others to believe that you will stay, regardless of how they treat you. It sends a silent message, "You don't have to value me. I'll keep showing up anyway." And slowly, without realizing it, you become a background character in your own life. But here is the truth. Self-worth is not negotiable. You don't compromise it to maintain peace, because real peace does not ask you to shrink. You don't mute your voice just to be accepted, because acceptance that requires your silence is just disguised rejection. Every time you settle for less than you deserve, a part of you knows it. A part of you feels that discomfort, that inner tightening. That feeling is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the part of you that refuses to accept conditions that insult your essence. So the question is not, will they appreciate me if I try harder? The real question is, why am I still here when they don't? You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you treat yourself as valuable, they will either rise to meet you or fall away. Let them fall. Not everyone is meant to walk the path with you, and that's okay. Some people are only lessons in boundaries, reminders that not everyone deserves access to your light. To walk away is not to quit, it is to choose. To choose yourself over your fear of being alone. To choose your integrity over your desire for acceptance. And to choose growth over comfort. Because staying where you're not appreciated doesn't make you loyal, it makes you forgettable. And you were not born to be forgotten. You were born to remember who you are. There comes a time when words no longer hold the power to express what you are feeling. You've explained, you've expressed, you've even lowered your voice so others could raise their understanding. But still, they do not listen, not truly. Not with the heart. And when words fail to reach the ears or the soul of another, silence becomes your strongest statement. Silence is often mistaken for weakness. Many assume if you are not arguing, not defending, not proving your worth, then you have nothing left to say. But silence is not emptiness. It is control. It is clarity. It is the voice of someone who has realized that explanation is no longer necessary. Because those who truly see you, don't need it. And those who continuously misunderstand you will never hear it. There is power in walking away quietly, no outburst, no dramatic goodbye. Just presence, then absence. And in that absence, everything becomes louder. Your absence speaks the truth that your words could not. It reveals the value you brought, which went unrecognized. It shows the weight of your contribution, the light of your spirit, now missing from the room, the relationship, the connection. You don't need to convince someone to value you. If they didn't hear you when you were speaking from your heart, your silence will echo longer than any sentence could, because silence does not seek to win. It does not aim to dominate. It simply allows reality to unfold, unforced, without attachment. It takes strength to stay silent when your heart is screaming to be understood, but that strength comes from wisdom. The wisdom that knows being heard is not the same as being respected. You can explain yourself 1,000 times and still remain unheard if the person you're speaking to has already decided not to value you. That's when silence becomes your boundary. That's when silence becomes self-respect. There is peace in silence, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of self-possession. It is the space where you no longer react to every offense because your energy is too sacred to be spent on fruitless debates. Not every situation requires a response. Not every insult needs a defense. Some things are better answered with distance, not dialogue. In silence, you become the observer, not the reactor. And from that stillness, you can see clearly who is drawn to your truth and who only stayed for the noise. Silence has a way of filtering your life. It separates the curious from the committed, the shallow from the sincere. The most dignified thing you can do is say nothing at all. To walk away without bitterness, without a need to explain. Not because you've given up, but because you've grown beyond the need to be validated by those who cannot meet you where you stand. Let them wonder why you left. Let them sit in the stillness your silence created. In that space, they will either realize your worth or reveal that they never saw it. Either way, you gain your peace. Because at the end of the day, silence is not absence. It is presence, pure and undisturbed. It is the sound of someone choosing themselves, without apology. Your energy is your life force. It is not infinite. It cannot be replaced once wasted. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every action you take, it all draws from this inner reservoir of energy. And yet, so often, we give it away without thought. We pour it into people who do not value it. We invest it in conversations that go nowhere, arguments that bring no peace, and spaces that leave us feeling smaller, not stronger. There's a difference between giving and being drained. One expands you, the other empties you. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself exhausted. Not from doing too much, but from giving too much to the wrong things. You are not meant to convince people of your worth. That effort alone is one of the greatest leaks of energy. You begin by simply wanting to be seen. But when you're not appreciated, you start doing more. Overextending, over-explaining, overcompensating. All of this hoping for a recognition that never truly comes. And in that pursuit, something within you starts to dim. Not because you are weak, but because you are tired of offering yourself to those who cannot receive you. There is a deep cost to staying where your energy is not honored. It shows up quietly. Fatigue, anxiety, self-doubt, emotional heaviness. These are not random feelings. They are signs, warnings, a message from your inner world that you are giving too much and receiving too little in return. Protecting your energy is not selfish, it is wise. Because how can you show up fully in your purpose, in your peace, in your truth, if your energy is being drained by environments that take and never give? It is not your job to fix broken places. It is not your duty to be the light for those who refuse to open their eyes. You must be selective with where you invest your attention. Not everyone deserves access to your presence. Not every situation deserves your reaction. There is peace in being intentional. There is power in walking away, not out of anger, but out of understanding. This is not where my energy grows. Your energy carries your frequency, and that frequency affects everything: your thoughts, your health, your relationships. What you tolerate, you begin to absorb, and what you absorb, you begin to become. That is why it's so important to ask yourself regularly, what am I feeding with my energy? Is it lifting me or limiting me? Let go of the idea that you must always show up, always give, always remain available. Your energy is a sacred currency. Treat it as such. Save it for people who reflect it back to you. Save it for the work that fills your spirit. Save it for the silence that nourishes your mind. Let your energy flow only where it is respected. Because when your energy is aligned with appreciation, love, and purpose, it multiplies. You rise. You radiate. You create space not just for others, but for your true self to breathe. And in that space you finally understand. You were never tired because you did too much. You were tired because you gave your soul to places that couldn't hold it. So protect your energy. Walk away if you must, not out of bitterness but with gratitude, because you finally remembered how much your presence is worth. Detachment is often misunderstood. People hear the word and think it means not caring, not feeling, or shutting down emotionally. But true detachment isn't about turning cold or distant. It's about clarity. It's about strength. It's the quiet power of knowing what to hold on to, and more importantly, what to let go of when it no longer serves your growth. To detach is to remain rooted in your inner peace, even when the world around you demands your reaction. It is the ability to walk away not because you feel nothing, but because you refuse to lose yourself in the chaos of what does not align with your values. Detachment is not a wall. It's a doorway back to yourself. Most people stay where they are because they are emotionally entangled. They confuse attachment with loyalty, confusion with love, and habit with commitment. They stay even when their heart aches, even when their spirit is drained, because the familiar feels safer than the unknown. But growth does not happen in comfort. It happens in release. And to detach is to finally recognize that what you're clinging to might be the very thing that's weighing you down. There is a time when holding on is brave, but there's also a time when letting go is wiser. Detachment is the art of knowing when you've done enough, said enough, given enough. It is the awareness that some people will never meet you where you are, not because they can't, but because they won't. And your peace cannot depend on their pace. We've been taught to fight for what we want, to not give up, to endure, but wisdom whispers something else. You don't have to stay where your soul no longer feels at home. You don't have to argue for your worth. You don't have to hold on to people who only show up when it's convenient for them. There is freedom in loosening your grip, in choosing to prioritize your inner stillness over outer chaos. When you detach, you stop begging for closure. You stop seeking explanations. You stop waiting for change. Instead, you return to yourself. You stop resisting the flow of life and begin to trust it. What is meant for you will never require you to betray yourself to keep it, and what leaves you was never meant to stay. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough about yourself to stop diminishing your light for someone else's comfort. Detachment doesn't mean you're numb. It means you finally realize the difference between connection and control, between effort and self-sacrifice. It takes courage to walk away in silence, to stop participating in patterns that keep you stuck, to let go without bitterness or blame. But that is where strength lies, in choosing yourself even when it hurts. In recognizing that peace is not found in trying to hold everything together, but in learning to hold yourself together when everything else falls away. You are not here to carry what life has asked you to release. Not every bond is meant to be permanent. Not every season requires your staying. Some people enter your life only to teach you how to let go, and some moments exist only to teach you how to detach. So breathe. Loosen your grip. Step back from what pulls you out of alignment. The space you create in detachment is the space where healing begins. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. And in that space you discover something sacred. You are already whole, even without the things you once thought you couldn't let go of. Your presence is not something ordinary. It is not just physical. Your presence carries your energy, your attention, your awareness. And wherever you bring that presence, whether it's to a conversation, a relationship, a room, it has an impact. But not everyone sees it. Not everyone values it. And over time, when this goes unnoticed, something in you begins to feel unsettled. You start to wonder, am I being truly seen here or simply tolerated? There is a quiet pain in being physically present while feeling emotionally invisible. It's not always dramatic. It's subtle. A delayed response, a lack of eye contact, an energy that says, you don't matter as much as you think you do. And that's when you must remember something essential. Your presence is a gift, not a burden. Not everyone deserves it, and it should never feel like an obligation. The moment your being somewhere feels more like a duty than a choice, that is the moment you begin to lose the essence of why you showed up in the first place. You are not here to convince people to enjoy your company. You are not meant to chase love, validation, or acknowledgement. When your presence is offered with sincerity, kindness, and openness, and it still goes unrecognized, do not give more, give space. Sometimes stepping back says more than staying and trying harder ever will. People who truly value you don't need to be reminded to make you feel seen. They don't need constant explanations or performances or proof. They recognize your presence the moment you arrive. They make space for your voice. They appreciate your energy, not because you demand it, but because they feel it. But if you find yourself in places where your presence is taken for granted, if you are expected to show up without being cared for, to listen without ever being heard, to give without being received, pause. That is not connection, that is imbalance. And it is not your responsibility to correct someone else's lack of appreciation by offering even more of yourself. When presence becomes a performance, when it feels transactional, when it starts to drain instead of uplift, that is not love. That is obligation, wearing the masks of loyalty. And you are not here to wear masks. You are here to be true. You must start seeing your own time and energy as valuable. Because if you don't, others won't either. If you continue to show up for people who only notice your absence but never your effort, you will begin to question your own worth. Not because you lack it, but because you gave it away to those who couldn't hold it. It is not unkind to walk away. It is not rude to choose spaces where your presence feels welcomed, not endured. It is a sacred act of self-respect. The moment you begin to treat your presence as sacred, everything changes. You stop settling, you stop explaining, you stop overextending. You start observing who reciprocates your energy and who only absorbs it. When you realize that your presence is a gift, you no longer offer it recklessly. You no longer wait to be invited into places that ignore your value. You walk with calm, you speak with intention, and when the moment comes to leave, you do so gracefully. Not because you weren't enough, but because you finally remember that you always were. And the right people, the right spaces, will never make you feel like a burden. They will feel honored that you chose to show up. Growth is not found in places where everything feels familiar. It does not live in routine or in repetition or in staying within the safety of what you already know. Real growth begins the moment you step outside of your comfort, not because discomfort is pleasant, but because it's necessary. Comfort feels good. It's warm, predictable, and easy. It gives the illusion of peace, but often it is the enemy of progress. You remain in the same job, the same relationship, the same routine, not because it inspires you, but because it's known. And the known, even when unfulfilling, often feels safer than the unknown. But nothing meaningful grows in a space that no longer challenges you. Flowers don't bloom in stale soil. Muscles don't strengthen without resistance. And the soul doesn't evolve without being stretched, broken, and rebuilt. If your life feels too still, too quiet, too easy, ask yourself, am I growing or am I just surviving comfortably? When you're not appreciated, when your presence is overlooked, when your value is ignored, that discomfort is not just emotional pain, it's a signal. It's life nudging you, pushing you gently, then firmly, then relentlessly, until you can no longer ignore it. That unease you feel is not something to suppress, it is something to explore. It's the beginning of a new direction, a deeper awareness. But to follow that direction, you must be willing to release what is familiar. You must be willing to disappoint others to stay true to yourself. That is where growth begins. Not in pleasing the world, but in honoring your inner voice even when it contradicts what others expect of you. Leaving behind a situation that no longer aligns with your spirit is not weakness. It's a sign that you've outgrown something. And outgrowing is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. A shift in energy, a fading of interest, a gentle realization that where you are is no longer where you are meant to be. The path of growth is not paved with comfort. It demands courage. It asks you to sit in unfamiliar spaces, to face parts of yourself that were hidden beneath routine. It requires solitude, reflection, and often the discomfort of letting go of old identities, false stories, unbalanced connections. You will be tempted to go back, to return to what feels easy, to silence your longing with distraction. But deep down you'll know you've already outgrown that version of you. And once the soul expands, it cannot shrink back to fit the life you once settled for. When you walk away from places where you're not appreciated, you begin the process of reclaiming your power. It will not feel easy, it will not feel instant, but it will feel real. And over time, what once felt like loss will begin to feel like liberation. You don't grow by staying where you're tolerated. You grow by choosing what aligns with your worth. And every step into discomfort becomes a step toward your truth. It teaches you resilience, self-trust, and presence. It reminds you that your life is too valuable to be lived in small, shrinking spaces. So when you feel that discomfort rising, don't run from it, don't numb it, don't silence it. Listen, honor it. Let it guide you out of what is known and into what is true, because it is in that unknown, just beyond the edge of your comfort, that your next version is waiting to be discovered. Remember this: you are not difficult, you are not too much, you are simply not for people who fail to appreciate the value of presence, effort, and heart. Your growth will offend those who benefit from your silence, but walk anyway. Because when you walk away from what doesn't honor you, you walk toward your highest self.